Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Artur Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
It's us doing what we love. But it's time to bang. Oh, yeah, it's Friday. You ain't got shit to do. Do not adjust your flux capacitor. This ain't 2022, right? This is 2024, and we back with a bang. Friday, October 11th. We promised you it's coming back. I had to find whatever was left of my AG1 collection to celebrate this. I'm Brian Campbell. That's Luke Thomas and LT. Today, we're actually getting paid for this ish. Full production. We back. And if you could even take that further, you could argue that we back with a bang.
Well, first of all, you're probably drinking some metals and carcinogenic substances in that disgusting drink. Also, you're right. It's back. So another fan told me we should call it Fully Funded Fridays. The triple F.
Triple F. I love it. I friggin' love it. Luke, it's been a year, it's been a hot minute of hell the last 2 years, to be fair, but through all the ups and downs, I want to thank you. I want to thank the people behind this show, Brian Daly, Matt Snyder, so many others. I want to thank Long Island Luke and Mike. I want to thank everybody, the fans out there. It's been a crawl and a scrape. But we back, so let's celebrate it. Let's have a great show today. All right.
That's a great way to put it. I don't have much to add except I echo all of your sentiments. Thank you to DraftKings, to Brian Daly, to everyone on the staff here as well, to all of the fans. Again, didn't quite happen on the timeline we had hoped, but Fully Funded Fridays are back. MK is now officially 2 times a week. Fun little show planned for you today and every Friday going forward. Everyone else can suck my balls.
We're going to do our final preview and picks for all things Beterbiev versus Bivol UFC Fight Night from the Apex with a flyweight main event that's pretty damn good. And also look at some of the latest news, including this face-to-face between Ilia, Topuria, and Max Holloway. And Luke, maybe a little over-under today. We'll bring one back from the archives. We'll show the people what this used to taste like. What would you say, though, about the future segments on a Friday here as we continue to expand?
So I think the way it's going to go, again, we want to just get back into a routine at first, right? Like just keep having a regular slate of shows that people can expect. That's part of it. I think the other part is we kind of discussed this previously on other Monday shows we've been doing, but to reiterate, we definitely want to keep the classics that people want in terms of segmentation. So we intend to do that. We're not going to do it today, but OK Bet will be coming back, right? And I think under a system that people will be happy with. And, some of the other things that folks like, but we also want to definitely add some new, fresh segments to it as well. So today, we're just rolling out, I think, what we would call probably a little bit more of a traditional show, but definitely as the Fridays get going, some expansion of segmentation for sure.
So morningkombat@gmail.com. It's still your way to reach us for dead wrongs, which are now back in play. Okay. We don't always get it right. Actually, rarely we do. Yeah. Also, fan subs will be back in some form. So get out there with your artwork, with your tight t-shirts, with the picture of you and your wife on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Shout out to Joe Lysenring right there. Or your future wife in that case. We're still a family. We're still going to make this community work step by step. So great show coming today. Luke Thomas, would you say you're pretty damn fired up for the weekend of fights to come?
I am. The UFC fights are very, except for the main event. The main event is fantastic.
Nubs on those, Luke? Give me a nubs on that, right?
So for example, it used to be Roster Watch and now it's Roster Tracker on Twitter. Yeah. And the UFC apparently just had a fucking purge yesterday of fighters, and there was a couple on there I was sad to see. Brian Kelleher, I like him a lot. Obviously I think he's done some great things, but
he brings the boom, just like AJ Bufumo.
He's had some tough losses, but like the vast majority of those names, I was looking at this and being like, this is bloat on a roster if I've ever seen it in my life. So I'm not saying I was happy to see him go per se, but overdue to get some of those names out of there.
All right, let's bring in the third member of our team right now, live from his office at his house in Long Island. It is Long Island Luke, government name Nosita, son of an Australian. Long Island Luke, thank you for being. You were always a part of this show going back to the Malka days, but happy to have you in the chair as we continue to expand and maybe an opportunity to plug your great podcast, The Mile High Minute.
Thank you, BC. I'm happy to be here, boys. You can sub to me on YouTube, Main Car Minute. We do bet breakdowns, watch alongs. I have a cat too, so you'll see me, with the cat, all that.
In that life.
How many illegal drugs are coursing through your veins right now?
Right now, legal or illegal? What'd you say? I don't know. A couple.
And also our fourth member of the team here, Reginald Jackson, who will be around biting me throughout the show. So it's great to see. Luke, you got to see his butthole during the pre-show meeting. So it's fantastic.
Cats should get on OnlyFans because that's where butthole goes to thrive.
There it is. There it is. So that's Long Island Luke. That's BC and LT. And we also still do sell merch. morningkombat.store would be the spot for you. And I'm sure you can still get 10% off using our code LIVE10. I mean, you might be able to. Look, everything right now is in progress. Let's just say that about MK.
That is true. But
the wheels are moving. That's what you need. You just want us, I think, back in your life on Fridays. Look, a lot of competition out there, that are mounting up. A lot of people, without crowns, but luckily you're always crowning. In fact, you just barely made it to this show for your 10:55 bathroom appointment.
Yes, well, good thing we took a year off and we didn't let the competition make new plans. I will say this too. Have you noticed that MMA podcast now is just fighters talking to other fighters? Have you noticed that? That's just all it is anymore.
They don't need us anymore, Luke. All right.
I'm sure you'll get lots of questions about taking Kadyrov money. I think that's probably going to be first and foremost on the list.
I take that money every Wednesday in the super chat. Now, I don't feel good about it, Luke. I don't know if I have a future on YouTube.
You know what? I think you feel just fine. If I could be completely honest. Listen, it's better than being a taxi driver. Well, I mean, I don't know about that, but actually there's lots of ways, I think, for you to generate some passive. Would you even call it passive income? No, it's active income.
Passive aggressive income is what
passive aggressive income. Yes.
Yeah,
yes. There you go. Yes.
But yeah, as you saw on those social channels, you can check out Luke Thomas's fantastic YouTube channel as well. Myself, the Brian Campbell Experience. Luke, tell me if you remember this guy. Big interview today on the BCX with John Brennan, the cowboy from Real World Season 2, Los Angeles, 1993. Come on, that's got to move you. You're an old piece of S.
I do remember he wore a cowboy hat all the time, if I recall. Why did you decide to speak to him?
Because this is my channel. And,
no. What I'm saying, I don't mean. I get that part. I get that he's of interest. What I mean is he doing something interesting?
Yeah, there's a few things. After 25 years, he's gotten back into country music. He's got his own reality TV podcast with Beth Stolarczyk from Season 2 LA. I don't know if that's interesting under your purview, Luke, but this is the kind of S that I'm into. So
no, I'd rather get fucked to death by an 8-dick walrus.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. All right, let's get into this fantastic, wonderful show. We will be back, of course, in Meadowlark Studios in Manhattan on Monday. But for today, it's Friday. We're going to set the scene here with topic number 1. The final countdown is here. Both fighters have made the championship weight of 175 pounds within the last hour in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It's a DAZN pay-per-view on Saturday, but the main event will be offered one fight card only, 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus as well on Saturday. Of course, it's the first undisputed 4-belt showdown in light heavyweight history as 3-belt title holder Artur Beterbiev out of Montreal from Russia with love will take on his former amateur teammate in the Russian system, WBA champion Dmitry Bivol. Luke, we looked at the storylines coming in on Monday. I'm happy we get this second show this week so we can really break down this matchup, including who might win and all of that, our picks. Let's look at the odds as we speak right now from our friends over there at DraftKings. Let's go minus 130, Dmitry Bivol, your favorite, plus 110, Beterbiev, the 39-year-old, in a very rare spot as the betting underdog. Luke, you and I, I'm sure, have been crunching tape and content all week. Obviously, this isn't the kind of fight where you're going to see trash talk and you're going to see, your mom, your mom or your grandma texting you about it like my mom's doing over Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. But this is as not good as it gets. This is as great as it gets in championship boxing. Are we still feeling like this in some ways is the ultimate 50-50 fight against two unbeaten champions who are surefire future Hall of Famers regardless of what goes down on Saturday?
I just, unless you have some kind of inside information or I don't know, some kind of strong belief. Not only do I think it's 50-50, BC, I have been looking around and like listening to podcasts and doing, to your point, film study and reading about this. Like I've been spending a lot of time just kind of looking into this fight to see what other people who are inside boxing say about it. And I can't find any one of them who doesn't say that it's basically 50-50. On occasion, you'll find someone who's like very, very slightly in Beterbiev, slightly in Bivol or something like that. But nobody has come out at all and said anything like, Bivol's going to dominate, Beterbiev is going to get the stoppage in the 10th. Or again, gun to their head, you might get one of those. But I mean, like confidently asserting that one person's going to take control of this fight and make it their own, which of course, by the way, sometimes we get these fights we think are 50-50 and that can happen. But the point I'm trying to raise is even among insiders, there is what I would call not confusion of the sort that they can't make heads or tails of it, but rather anticipation.
Yes.
An understanding that this is so close, it is really, really, really difficult to forecast what could happen. And so to the point I raised previously, that could mean it's a nip and tuck affair. It could mean that one person completely takes over. BC, I thought Spence versus Crawford was going to be nip and tuck, and then Bud went in there and absolutely annihilated him. But I went back and I looked, actually, there were people who thought that Bud would run the table on him, or at least at a bare minimum, show a significantly stronger degree of quality. I cannot find any prediction from others about either Bivol or Beterbiev that asserts a similar kind of confidence. This one is razor close.
Bivol, 33 years old, 2 years removed from being the Universal Fighter of the Year when he defeated Canelo and Zurdo Ramirez back-to-back. Could not be further still in the peak of his physical prime. Obviously, Beterbiev is 39, so that brings off certain warning signs in your head. Also, you're going to add in the fact that this fight was delayed from a few months back because of knee surgery to Beterbiev. But the reality, though, to be fair, is Beterbiev started late in his career because of that long amateur background. Remember, he fought Alexander Usyk at heavyweight in the 2012 Olympics. He turned pro at age 26 after coming to Montreal and starting a new life there. And yes, I've made the arguments that in the second half of his career, more post-COVID, you're seeing Beterbiev get hit a little bit more. But Luke, would you say that, because Beterbiev was asked about this all week. I asked him about it on my personal channel. The whole idea of, is this fight coming too late? Kind of how Mayweather-Pacquiao did when they were both 38 and 36, despite the fact that they were still 1 and 2 pound for pound at the time. And he said, look, this is coming at the right time because I wasn't sitting around waiting on this fight. I was fighting other champions and unifying to get these 3 titles. And when asked about the knee, he said, I wouldn't be here right now if the knee wasn't 100%. So, Luke, he's been a man of few words, and we know that coming in, but I don't think there's any asterisks hovering over this fight. This is the perfect style clash between the traditional boxer in Bivol and the two-handed slugger in Beterbiev. Yes, both can do the complete games, but would you agree as we get ready to break this down now? I like to talk about the central tension in this matchup. To me, the central tension is Bivol, never been down as a professional, tends to control the terms of the fights. What happens in the second half, and particularly in the championship rounds, when Beterbiev has figured you out, when he's going downhill and starts cutting that ring off with more efficiency, and you're in the fire? To me, that's when we find out who really wins this fight. How do you see it as we move into this?
I don't see it too dissimilarly, but I do disagree a little bit.
Sure.
I do think it's relevant to wonder about Beterbiev's age and not fitness. I mean, do we all see the push-ups he was doing?
Dude, his grip strength must be absurd, right?
It's insane. And if you like I don't want people to injure themselves, but if you want to just play around with the fingertips, back of the hands, fist, try doing that. And by the way, he doesn't just do that and keep his feet planted. His feet come off the ground at every one of those as well. And like the knee surgery, I don't exactly think is a bad thing in the sense of, he won't have the same mobility. he does use a lot of level changes and then shuffles to get into place, but I don't think that like having his meniscus repaired is going to necessarily limit him. But I do think there is a difference worth pointing out. And the reality is, I don't know what the answer is, but that's why tomorrow is so important to get one. Namely, Beterbiev is 39 years old. That is not young in boxing years. He is a very in shape 39 years old, but there's something to be said for what that might mean if he is just really unable to close the distance and what kind of damage he could be taking. And more to the point, it's less about getting his knee repaired, but it's the time off and not competing, whereas Bivol has stayed fresh. And I made this point previously when you look at the case of Tank Davis coming out of before the Ryan Garcia fight, taking the Hector Garcia fight first, which was something of a tune-up-ish kind of contest, and then moving into the Ryan Garcia fight, he just looked much better prepared. Now, I think Tank is just better than Ryan anyway, but it's hard for me to imagine that didn't help him. I do think that's probably going to help Bivol a little bit. So my point is, I can't declare to you that that's going to be some major reason for the bout going one way or the other, but I do think it's an open question that we don't really have a good answer for just yet. However, the second thing you brought up, which is really this fight, the first half, it's not irrelevant. And in fact, if Bivol banks 6-7 rounds right up front, that is highly relevant.
Sure.
However, the most consequential part of this fight, assuming that it goes long, is going to be the second half, or certainly the last third or quarter at a bare minimum, where I would imagine at that point, Beterbiev is going to be having a lot more success with a much more stationary target. And when that kind of artillery begins to land down range, what does a guy like Bivol do about that? Because the reality is this: Beterbiev has been under fire before and been dropped. He got up, and obviously he's got a 100% KO rate. But to your point that BC raised, Bivol's never been down. I've seen him take some big shots and recover pretty well, but he never had an opponent who was as tenacious and unrelenting as a guy like Beterbiev. And this is the joy of this bout. Both guys have faced, very, very tough threats. Both guys have problem solved in a lot of different unique contexts. But the very particular threat that each one poses, neither guy has really faced anyone quite to that level who has as much of a complete package in that way as each of them do. And so we can kind of piece together, well, in this scenario, that one, in this scenario, that one. But the reality is, the second half, the last third, BC maybe at a bare minimum, Beterbiev is going to be landing. Can he keep Bivol against the ropes? And if he does, can Bivol withstand something like that? I cannot wait to find out.
I love that you said, for as much as both have very decorated resumes, they fought everybody they more or less could in this light heavyweight division, going back a decade. They've both beat former champions. They've both done some big things. But we could say Bivol's never been down, but he's never faced a puncher like Beterbiev, who's finished all 20 of his pro opponents, which is absurd. But the flip side for how good of a puncher Beterbiev is that statistically Bivol is among, if not the best, defensive fighter in the game today. ESPN Stats and Info combined with CompuBox to combine some of these numbers and illustrate, and I was able to sort of look at them. And Luke, here's the deal ultimately about Bivol. Not only does he have the best jab in boxing, meaning he averages 8.8 jabs connected per round and attempts 35.3. Both are the best in boxing, and his attempts of 35.3 are 13 more than the divisional average. He also, 65% of his punches he attempts are jabs. So he loves to, with that in and out pendulum style, likes to set you up with the jab, get inside with combinations and get out of there. But I think when you look at the totality of his defense, his opponents land 13% of total power punches against him. That's the lowest among all active fighters. And if you think about the plus minus, which is a statistic we use a lot in hockey, right? But in boxing, the plus minus is the difference between your punches landed compared to your opponent's landing on you. He has the third best plus minus overall in the entire game at plus 17.8, only bested by Shakur Stevenson and Bam Rodriguez. So the company we are talking about. So on one end, you've got Bivol, this efficient defensive fighter who it's not that he doesn't take chances, it's just that he's so technical and so preserved and always in control of the terms of the fight. But he's going up against this guy who averages 8 more punches attempted than him per round, lands 5 more than him per round. And get this on the combination punches for Beterbiev, 26% of his combination attempts involve 4 or 5 punches at one time. So when we talk about this as the perfect style contrast, it's statistically the perfect style contrast. It's ridiculous. I mean, Beterbiev lands 13 power punches per round. Bivol only lands 7. So it really comes down to who can break through what the other one not only does good, but does great at an elite, and in some cases best in the entire sport. Luke, how much of a challenge, after me laying out those stats, do you think it actually will be for Beterbiev to consistently find a home with his power shots inside against a Bivol who, you know, his style is constantly darting in and out and kind of leaving you off balance?
I think early it's going to be very difficult. You're talking about, I mean, the most important consideration about this fight for me is, yes, distance management, but more to that point, footwork. Yes, the jab, of course. The jab is the foundation of everything that, for the most part, both guys do, but in particular for Bivol, like all of his offense comes behind that. All of his combinations come behind that. His power punches come behind that. I mean, everything he does is a function of that. But to get that going, he has to have the right kind of distance. And to have that, he has to have the right kind of footwork. And so I think early and middle of the fight, I suspect that will be something that will be very difficult for Beterbiev to overcome. If you just look at when he's really able to overcome guys, he's got them backing up and he's got them to a degree trapped, either up against the ropes in the corner or someplace pretty close to it, very, very concerned about the damage. A guy like Bivol, if he can keep the jab steady, that can disrupt the rhythm of a guy like Beterbiev. It can enable him, you can jab and then move. You can jab and get out of the way. You keep your feet moving the whole time. And so I really feel like, one thing that Paulie Malignaggi said that I thought was kind of interesting was like what Beterbiev will do is he'll throw, and he doesn't really care if he hits you in the head, especially early. He's going to throw to the arms, to the elbow, to the hip, right? Anything he can do to cause you to not just second guess or think more, but to slow down just physically or to cause pain in some kind of way to make you less able to do that going forward or less able to do something else going forward. And I think there's just going to be a lot of foundation laying early there. The question is, can he keep that up? I mean, the reality is 12 rounds of Beterbiev. I mean, let's just say it outright. Like BC, like literally no one else has ever survived that.
Not a single person. Even in times that they've hurt Beterbiev, like you mentioned, he can get dropped or cut, but he's never out of these fights. And it's not miraculous comeback knockouts. He punches the life out of you as the fight progresses.
That's the reality. So it's like, if it's not just that if Bivol wins, he's the first guy to do that. He'd be the first guy to survive 12 rounds with him. That's insane. That's insane. So I again, the way you kind of framed it to start the conversation, I think is the most helpful one, which is early. I do think that Beterbiev is really going to struggle. I think he's going to have a hard time finding this guy. I think the speed, the rhythm, just the output, everything that Bivol does is to the point that you had raised, making the fight and defining it on his terms. It's once that slows down a little bit, assuming that it does, can Beterbiev mount enough offense to really degrade the physical capability of Bivol to keep that up? It's the great unknown.
And just the same on the flip side, how much can Bivol take? I mean, I get why he's the betting favorite here, despite not being the bigger puncher of the two. And when things are typically even, sometimes you'll get that favor going to the bigger puncher of the two. He's younger. Certainly, you can argue fresher at this moment and more active of late. But it's a different story in the second half of these fights against Beterbiev. And I like what you talked about. It doesn't matter if he's not hitting you flush, hitting the shoulders, hitting the arms, a move Canelo did. Remember when he injured Callum Smith and beat him down in that regard? It seems that these shots that Beterbiev lands throughout the beginning and middle ends of these fights, obviously body punches, we know you can put that money in the bank and slow somebody down late. But everything he lands at short range consistently takes the gas tank and the fight out of his opponents. But you could argue Bivol's among the most fit 12-round fighters in this game, and he doesn't get hit regularly. So, Luke, the central tension on this question, and somebody asked this in my live chat this week, and they were right on, is do we actually know Bivol has an amazing chin on the Beterbiev level, or is he just such a great defender that outside of getting rocked by Joe Smith Jr. in that title fight, we really haven't consistently seen him in any form of trouble?
No, you haven't. He hasn't really been tested. Not in this particular way. No, it's not like he has been, like he went up against dynamic punchers who landed a lot and he like Nogueira'd his way through it. No,
Sure.
that's not what has happened. He's taken a couple of big shots from overhands that caught him. Those are the big ones that he tends to get. Obviously, if you extend on the jab, and no one's going to set it up perfectly 100% of the time. And so, what you've seen are overhand rights really come over the top on him. That has been lefts too, but you get the idea. It's the overhand that tends to cause him some problems at times. But a lot of times, he's still leaning out of the way, so he is, mitigating some of the impact. And there's just very little follow up thereafter. Like he's very good about getting hit and being like, okay, let me change the circumstances so that doesn't happen quite to the same extent again, and then he'll do that. So it's what you're looking for from Beterbiev is obviously if he's got sustained offense, that's a great sign, because really no one's able to do that. But the question is like, how will he get that sustained offense? Because without his footwork and his jab and his feints and level changes, cornering or somehow trapping Bivol, like the last time I saw Bivol take a big shot, he had space behind him to move. That's the issue. If he can take a big shot, and then you mentioned Beterbiev's 4-punch combinations, the other 3 or 4 are going to miss if he's out and he's off to the racetrack again. You have to control the space, and once that happens, or assuming that it does, it's a different ball game.
There's 2 elements, it seems, to Bivol's offensive attack. One is building behind that jab. I just mentioned statistically how he's the best in the game, the most accurate. He uses it at times almost exclusively to set the table of what he wants to do with combinations once he starts darting in with that upright European style. But, he has great hand speed, better than Beterbiev, of course. But Luke, early, yes, I see him building rounds. But as this fight progresses, do you think Bivol can continue to have success on the inside? Or do you think ultimately he's going to figure out that jabbing on the outside in going into a role of pure boxer? Because remember, he's an incredible boxer, but he didn't outbox Canelo Alvarez. He stood in the pocket with timely combinations darting in and out, and he put it on Canelo. I don't expect that to happen in this fight. Do you think, though, that Beterbiev can discipline / scare / humble him enough to the point where maybe the second half road to victory for Bivol is exclusively boxing?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I could see a scenario where he's leading on the cards, everything's going pretty well. He takes a gigantic shot that he's not taken before, and now he's really quite hesitant, which, by the way, that would be a problem too, because then Beterbiev would turn on his afterburners and go after him. But again, you're just talking about a guy who's never faced firepower like what Beterbiev is going to rain down upon him, at least in theory anyway. And so what does that do to his psychological makeup when shit goes bad? What happens to him when, by the way, if he gets cut, if his eye swells shut, what happens to him then? Right? So these are all kinds of scenarios that, this is what I mean. It's like, are both guys tested? Well, yeah, I mean, they are. Like, these are undefeated world champions. This is for all the marbles, all the belts. It would hardly be fair to call them untested. At the other end of things, though, like, they're untested against this. They're untested on these circumstances, and it's hard to know exactly what happens when they come together. So I can definitely see that, but the point you raised about, like, could it change his game plan if he's touched up? But there's so many unknowns because we are entering the kind of fight where either guy can do something to their opponent that neither of them has really had to solve for in any kind of sustained round over round way. And it just makes it really, really, really hard to know what that will look like.
And if you're wondering how hard does Beterbiev actually punch outside of the gaudy knockout record of 20 KOs in 20 fights, the first time he unified titles in this division came against an unbeaten version of Alexander Vadzik, right? The Ukrainian Olympian who just recently came back after, he's built a comeback in the past year and then had the big loss to David Benavidez, but fought very well early on in Saudi Arabia. Let's remember that Beterbiev stopped him late and retired him at the peak of his prime due to a brain bleed scare because of how brutally he beat him late. Luke, I don't know if you saw that interview this week with Vadzik, and they asked him, I wish I knew the outlet. I wish I grabbed the audio. They asked him, like, what would you tell Bivol to do knowing
run away?
He said 3 things. Yeah. He goes, Don't get hit in the face, work your ass off, and run away. So that guy knows what it's like to be in there. He's basically saying, hey, Bivol, don't dart in. There's going to be no combination punching. You're going to jab, footwork, move, and try to outwork and outlast this guy on the scorecards. I don't think that's going to work. You're going to have to see Bivol establish himself, step in, take big chances. But this is power like nobody else. So, Luke, as we fuel into the predictions here, it's like, what do you do? Could you imagine Bivol winning 6 of the first 8 rounds? Yes. But what the hell happens round 9 through 12? Luke, are you ready to tell the people what does happen? Because this guy is a different power puncher, but he's going up against maybe the most perfect technical boxer with some good speed, power, and offensive flair that this division could hope for right now.
So you want my pick?
I do.
Well, let me just say, it is a joy to watch Beterbiev compete. He may be, I don't know if he's my favorite, but he's like top 5, like of all the guys who, even if he wasn't even fighting Bivol this weekend, I would be like, I want to make time whenever he competes. He's got such a, there's just very few guys in the game who have such a unique command of the sport that when you watch them, you realize you're not watching like other guys cannot do this. Even Bivol could not do what Beterbiev does, not even close. And so for that reason, he's one of my favorites. So I want to be honest. I actually want him to win. I just don't think he will. I actually feel like Bivol is going to get this. Now, I don't think Bivol gets a stoppage or anything. I think Bivol by split decision is the way I'm going to go. I think
on activity.
I think he's going to get
taste the canvas.
I'll say, oh, man, I don't know. I do think this. I feel confident in saying this. He's going to have some moments, several rounds, where he's just up against it in ways he's absolutely never, ever been up against it. But I feel like the problem that Beterbiev has is that even if he lands, Bivol is smart enough to know what I mentioned previously, which is that if you go too safe, you actually make it worse. You actually enable Beterbiev. I mean, there's a certain delicate balance you have to get right. But if you go too far over that, you're going to get finished. If you go too less than that, it also invites further aggression. There's a certain amount you have to maintain, a certain kind of order and distance you have to maintain. And I feel like even if he gets rocked, he has to know that has to maintain. Otherwise, it all completely falls apart. And that will lead to enough of a work rate that will enable him to get his hand raised in the end. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Beterbiev wins. I'll be delighted if he wins. I just feel like I got to go with Bivol for the reasons aforementioned.
That's a strong pick. And by the way, when I was reading those quotes from Vodzik, that wasn't him making jokes. He said that in a straight of a face.
Let me just say this. BC's right. If you actually watch it, the guy's like, what? It was like a British interviewer, right? And the guy's like, what do you recommend? And he's like, run away. And dude, he was not joking. He was being dead serious. He's like, just get the fuck out of the way. It's like, what do you do when a building collapses? Get the fuck out of the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Building 7 also, Luke.
All right. I mean, you couldn't resist.
I'm just not. All right, here's the deal. I've been Bivol this whole time, Luke. I really have. Because of everything you said. He's so efficient. His defense is through the roof. I mean, those numbers don't lie. He commands and controls almost every aspect of the fights he is in. But that Beterbiev power is just so different. And even in the post-COVID fights where I feel like more than ever, you're seeing little pockets of, I don't know if it's slippage or slowing down. Man, does he figure his opponents out? It's not just, wait till the end like Deontay Wilder and he'll find a way to land that one big punch. So if I'm picking Beterbiev by KO, which I am, by the way, I'm not picking him from the standpoint of one massive punch to bail himself out when he's losing, 8 rounds to 3 at that point. I think ultimately the biggest problem for Bivol here is no one has been able to take the terms of a fight away from him at the highest level professionally up to this point. And the only one capable of doing it is Beterbiev because of his knowledge, his strength, his boxing, his ability to cut off that ring. He is such a smart puncher. He throws short, heavy, devastating blows almost at all times, almost exclusively a power puncher at times, right? Obviously, though, he does have a very good jab, a very heavy, strong jab. I think when we get into that second half, the one underrated aspect of Beterbiev for being such a big guy, right? He's a huge light heavyweight. He has a gas tank. He has an understanding of how to win fights. I just think when he starts changing the terms of the fights in the second half, and it really, we see Bivol, like you mentioned, not in the center of the ring, looking to either avoid or how does he react to one big punch. What happens when the real estate changes? What happens when he gets cornered? I know he's better than all 20 of the opponents Beterbiev has knocked out before, but Beterbiev is different. I've got him by KO in this. I've come around. I've watched enough tape. I've watched every interview. I've crunched all the numbers in my head. I got the action figures out and recreated it in front of me, Luke. I did the whole thing on this. Either way, we're all going to win because this is an insanely awesome 50-50 fight that's not only going to determine the first undisputed champion at 175, the best fighter of this era in this weight class. Luke, as we mentioned on Monday, there are legit pound-for-pound considerations. I have Beterbiev 4, Bivol 5 on my list right now for CBSSports.com. I know we both can talk ourselves into this. If Beterbiev improves to 21-0 with 21 KOs and knocks out Bivol to do it, could he get a vote ahead of Usyk, Bud Crawford, Inoue? I think we all realize if he does it spectacularly, yes. But Luke, what about Bivol? If Bivol goes in there and solves Beterbiev, what are we going to be saying about his pound-for-pound relevance come Monday morning?
Okay, so here's the thing. I still don't think it would put him ahead of Inoue, Bud, or Usyk for a very simple reason, which is that these guys are conquering weight classes beyond their original one or their basic one, their the natural one. Whereas with Bivol, this is kind of all he's, if assuming he gets to that point, this will be the only weight class he's ever unified. He hasn't done it in multiple weight classes. So for that reason, I would still at best rank him fourth. But in terms of like the quality he'd be offering, it would be nearly tantamount to the other guys, like what you're looking at. There's, that's why it's really hard to decide like who's different from Bud to Inoue to Usyk. And it's because, I mean, they have very different styles. They're in different weight classes, different parts of the world even. But there's no real drop-off in quality between them, even if there are some noteworthy differences. I think Bivol would be part of that kind of conversation too. There's no drop. You get past Beterbiev, and by the way, I mean, we haven't talked about it. I don't think it's likely. But could he stop Beterbiev? And if he stops Beterbiev,
yikes.
You know what I mean? You're dealing with somebody who, like, this is what I can say. Either guy scores a stoppage, assuming it's not a fuckery win. You know what I mean? You're talking about basically the best that boxing has to offer. I'm not saying I'd rank him number one pound for pound, but in a sort of a looser sense of the way we describe it, that's the best that boxing has. That's what that looks like. That's what that means. That's what that would signify to me.
That's where I was leading you, and I'm glad you said it, because not only could you argue that this fight in general, all the stakes and terms and what they bring to the table, I've wrote a column this week. This is the best in boxing. This is the best, as you know, this Fury versus Usyk 1, Spence versus Crawford 1. I mean, you know, Mayweather pack, like these are on paper, the terms, this is the best boxing can offer. But the fact that the winner could potentially have a chance to say in this era, by the way, which I've never seen a more competitive pound for pound era. I remember 3 years ago, I was like, there's 6 to 7 guys with an outside claim at number one. Right now, that's really 3. Could we get a 4th? Could they have a shot at exiting the ring in Riyadh on Saturday saying, I'm the best fighter in the world? Yeah, because what's the biggest currency from a pound for pound level that you can add? Defeating another pound for pound great. These two are in my top 5. Everyone else has them in the top 7 or 8 for the most part. It can get congested there in the middle, but that just adds on to how big this event is. No rematch clause, by the way. Luke, did you see that little back and forth with Beterbiev and Eddie Hearn at the press conference yesterday? We never see that personality from Artur.
Eddie Hearn getting real mouthy.
Yeah,
that's I don't know if Beterbiev is the guy you want to get mouthy against, especially since Eddie Hearn's main event guys have been on a dramatic losing skid.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Bivol is excellent, but still, like Eddie Hearn plays with fire, does he not? He pokes the bear.
I love when Artur was like, "You talk a lot," and Eddie's like, "Yeah, it's my job to do that. You should try it." And I was like, "Okay, you're about to get knocked out."
I know.
On the
He
stage.
had me at it's my job to do that. Okay,
Yes.
fair enough. And then you should try it. No, you should be quiet. You should be very
You should
quiet.
shut the F up. Luke, I'm not that interested in the undercard. I mean, we do get Chris Eubank Jr. back.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
The only thing. Oh, hold on. Who gives a shit? The only thing that was even remotely interesting about him this week was Conor Benn also being a jackass and getting in his face.
Taking the glasses off,
yeah. Which I want to be clear, that was the best thing about it, and I also didn't care about that. I like Chris Eubank. I don't have anything against him, but like, let's be real. It's not fair to call this a one fight card, but insofar as I am like actually thinking about this and how I'm going to really apportion my attention, it's a one fight card.
There you go. There you go. A lot of UK friendly fights on there. Some good ones though too, and some people like Sky Nicholson a lot. Luke, the Australian boxer. So
was this the one who like weighs in her lingerie?
I mean, who doesn't these days, Luke? Are they? You know what I'm saying?
She does, right? Am I right about that? She does do that.
I don't know if it's lingerie, but everyone weighs in their skivvies.
No. There was one. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody different.
No, you're thinking. I know you're thinking of Ebony Bridges. I think Ebony.
Oh, maybe yes.
Yeah. You're thinking of Ebony Bridges.
Yeah, look at Mr. Pornography here.
No, because Sky Nicholson's an Aussie boxer, so I like her. I said boxer, weird. But she's not like slutty like that. She's chill.
Will you go pants off on the main card minute during the pay-per-view undercard on Saturday?
No, I will not.
Okay.
But I will.
The main card minute. Are you guys like the worst kind of MMA fan that like I don't like boxing at all?
No, I just was saying I'll probably do a lead-in with Beterbiev-Bivol into the main card.
Yeah. Because the UFC card starts at 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but the main at 7. Yeah, exactly.
No, Sita, before we leave you here, this is a 50-50 fight. Luke and I just picked opposite sides after a long breakdown of what can happen. You're a betting man. I don't know how up you are on these two guys, but what is your pick for Saturday?
So you guys definitely sold me on Bivol by decision as a good prop. I also like Beterbiev money line at plus money. I was just looking at the knockdown odds. Bivol to get knocked down plus 100.
Ooh.
And I like that a lot. So I might do Bivol by decision and Bivol to get knocked down as like a little hedge.
I like those are good bets. I like all of those bets. Yeah, dude, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one to call. Very, very tough.
Follow for more good bets. Thank you.
Luke, big Luke.
Follow for more good bets and pornography talk.
And bong hits, apparently. Luke, this fight will probably end around 7 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Will you be post-fighting it on the Luke Thomas Show?
I'm definitely going to do a watch along, which means I'll probably do something of a post-fight, but join me at 6 p.m. to just watch the shit. So
there you go. Check it out at the at Luke youtube.com/Luke Thomas. Indeed. I might do something on Saturday. We'll see. I got some other things going on. All right, Luke, that's our first topic. Our second topic, let's move over to MMA and UFC. And let's talk about the big face-to-face ahead of one of the biggest fights in the last few years. The type of fight that gets me out of my chair, shadow boxing, just thinking about it. Ilia Topuria defending that featherweight title in his first defense, fresh off the destruction of Alexander Volkanovski, up against former champion, BMF champion, and really second half of career resurrected Max Holloway. They did a Zoom style face-to-face. Brendan Fitzgerald of the UFC was the host. Luke Thomas, I exited this getting even more fired up for UFC 308, which is coming up in Abu Dhabi in, what was it? Is it October 26th? Did I nail that?
Yeah, 2 Saturdays from now, basically.
2 Saturdays from now. What would you say? We do have clips that we can throw to in a second, but what's your biggest takeaway from seeing these two? And I know this is just trash talk, but seeing these two on the same camera at the same time getting after it.
I love how, I wouldn't call it angry it is between them, but competitive, like each guy's. Yeah. Right. So I love that. I just want to say, as a general worldview, I love how much Ilia makes everyone angry. I can't tell. It feeds and nourishes my soul. Not so much Max.
And
But
you're
like,
Joan Stone, Luke. Where is your right hand at the moment? That's what the viewers want to know. Yeah, all right. There you go.
but like, just to watch, like, oh, I fucking hurt this guy, Ilia. I'm like, yes, let the hate flow through you. I fucking love it. But I will say this: I thought Max had some good jabs against him. I did think the one about going after his English backfired on him pretty big.
Maybe we can throw to it now and react.
Yeah,
it was
I have one
biggest-
more take after that, but let's see that one. Yeah.
I believe this was the biggest sort of takeaway that so many people had. This was at the very end of their 20-something minute back and forth.
All the time, say the same.
Hey,
I don't need to say anything.
What? Speak, bro. Come on.
Bro, I'm speaking in your language. Let's talk in Spanish. Let's talk in Georgian. Let's talk in Russian. Let's talk in Germany. What the f you talking about, man? Si quieres hablamos en español y te pongo en tus sitios. If you want to talk in English, whatever you want to do, boy.
Luke, I don't think Max looked great there. What's your takeaway? I mean, it's cool that Topuria speaks 18 languages, Luke, but what are you taking away from that?
On the merits of the point, I just know how you could disagree with Topuria. Like, this is like what, third or fourth fucking language? Like, you know, he's just not going to be as fluid in that as he is in what he speaks normally. I think most folks at a bare minimum could understand that. BC, now I have to be careful here because I like how much Ilia irritates the fan base.
Yes.
But am I wrong? Because that very well could be. Am I wrong in perceiving that he seemed to be doing a little bit more than irritating Max? He had Max a little bit befuddled's not quite the right word, but not really himself either. Did you detect that he had that kind of effect on him, or is that my imagination?
I don't know if it's the effect on him or if Max just didn't expect that this was going to be a full-time back and forth, like, where's your best trash talk? Like, this is some Kill Tony / rap battle or something like that. In that sense, and again, you can always argue what the value is in these pre-fight moments like this. I always try to argue there is a lot of value. But I'll tell you this, I watched that and Max lost. Not a 10-7, not maybe even 10-8, but a clear 10-9. I thought Ilia had better responses for his fourth language or third language. He was more articulate and humorous and tough and all of that. I don't know if Max was overwhelmed and just kept going back to the, okay, we'll see. Or maybe that's just more of how he is. I mean, do we have a long history of Max being in these, you know, McGregor versus Diaz war of words leading up into a fight? Maybe not as much, but whatever you want to take away from who won this, Topuria won it, but does that mean he's in Max's head? I personally believe Max is too much of a veteran, too much of a look. The thing about Max, wherever he ends up on any kind of all-time list, whatever other titles he adds to his, you know, or a second title here at featherweight, the one thing I will say about him is he's more game mentally than, you know, 99% of the fighters that ever walked in there. And I know that because of how many times he's reinvented himself in the face of us going, oh, this might be the end. Too much damage. Oh, a third loss to Volkanovski, and he got bloodied and his ass kicked. Yet what does he do? Goes back and turns it back on. So no, I don't think this is some big L where he's going to go back to the gym and be down and out. But for whatever this is worth to sell the fight, Topuria kind of clearly dominated this.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that these exchanges, when they go well for one guy, means he's going to win in the fight, or when it goes poorly, he's going to, you know, lose in the fight. I tend to think that they have a minimal relationship, or, you know, tangential at best in many cases, to what ultimately happens in the fight. And to the point you raised, like, dude, Max is highly experienced, highly motivated. Like, I just don't believe that Topuria just seems to be annoying to people who are on the other side of whatever he's doing, right? Either you're fighting him and you find him annoying, or you find him annoying because he's beating your favorite guy or the stuff he says on social. But like, he tends to have this very, like, radiates this kind of negativity from other people. And I just think, like, you kind of saw that from the fan base. You're kind of seeing it now from Max. But I'm with you. Like, I thought that, you know, Topuria, you know, performed ably given what this kind of event is. But in the end, that is really not going to explain to me who wins or loses. And, you know, is he in Max's head again? Dude, Max is just on a completely... you can rattle an experienced competitor. Yes, you can. But it's going to take a lot more than that to do it.
Long Island Luke, would you be a gentleman and play another clip here? I want to react to it. Hit me. Your choice. Hit me with this.
Dealer's choice.
Ilia, what did you think of Max's fight against Justin Gaethje in April?
Yeah, he don't have to answer that. Everybody saw the video already. We saw the video. Run the clip.
Bro, I was so bored watching that fight. The only thing excited about that fight was the last 10 seconds, to be honest. I didn't see any technique in that fight. I didn't see any strategy. I didn't see any fucking thing. I just saw a bar fight. It was very spectacular for the fans, but for me as a professional, it was I don't know, not something very impressive.
I mean, your face says otherwise, so it is what it is, brother.
I challenge you to have that exchange, but in the first 10 seconds of the fight, and you will see what's going to happen. When you face a fighter like me inside the octagon who brings that technique and that power, you can't do that. I'm going to take you head off.
Find out. We're going to find out October 26th, right?
Find out in the first 10 seconds.
We're going to find out. First 10 seconds. You love that. You get tired every time. Relax.
I get tired. I get tired of knocking people out.
2 weeks. We got 2 more weeks.
I get tired of knocking people out. Submit people.
Calm down.
I get tired.
By the way, I gotta say, let me just interject here. Like, calling himself champion on his Instagram before he beats Volkanovski, everyone was like, the nerve of this motherfucker. Then he knocks him out. Now, I don't know what's going to happen against Max, but having that like fake BMF belt over the shoulder, dude, he irritates people. I get it. I fucking love it.
Look, I don't love it like you do, but I respect it. I respect that he is so cocky and so in belief of his abilities and strengths that he'll flaunt it on that level. Again, I don't think you break Max with that, but you maybe give Max a lot to think about. And it is interesting, you know, the signature right here, like he did against Lamas, like he did against Gaethje at the end of the fight, at the end of that 5-round fight. What about in the opening 10 seconds? It's really about, and this interview played into that a lot. Topuria believes, Luke, that not only is his power the difference in this matchup, which I think, you know, in a generic sense, it might be, but he really believes his boxing is light years ahead of Max, and went on multiple times to break down, not just sort of making fun of the Gaethje win as some street brawl or bar brawl, but really saying in general, he doesn't think Max moves his head enough. He doesn't think Max throws pinpoint precise punches. Is he making points here, Luke?
Max moves his head a little bit, but not, I mean, again, is there validity to a degree about what Ilia is saying? Yes. Is he also to a degree overstating it for effect? Yes. Right. So it's not one or the other. It's a little bit of both. I mean, I would say this, I think of the two, you know, in terms of like the full body of boxing ability, it's more central at a bare minimum to Topuria's game. And he is, at least in terms of the record overall, a more dynamic power puncher. But Max has a phenomenal jab. He has great tactical awareness. Obviously, you saw how his power translated at 145. We'll talk about this in a couple of weeks. I think the one thing I'm looking at, BC, is to what extent does going from 45 to 55 back down to 45, when we know that 45 cut is hard and you already were kind of accustomed to 55, what that does to both his ability to take a shot, perform, and then also what it does to his power punching. So, like, these are some questions, and again, I won't know the answer till we watch, but it's something that I'll be kind of paying attention to. So, yes, Ilia has some smoother forms of technique overall than Max, but Max is obviously a very, very, very capable boxer in MMA.
Long Island Aussie rules. Luke, can we see the third clip here?
It's just talking until October 26th. The cage door is closing. May the better man win.
And no one's gonna save you once that cage gonna be closed, my friend.
No one's gonna save you too, buddy. No one's gonna be in there. Actually, there is. The referee is gonna save you, buddy. The ref is in there to save you, buddy.
For the first time, trust me, and you will become an instant fan. And you already know how it feels when you have to bounce back. You already have a 7 professional defeat. I have 0. So you're going to do it once again really well. I don't have any doubts about that. You are a great example of that. And you have to stay like that.
I took a lot of people's donuts, bro. I hope you like churros. Because you're about to get one come October 26th, buddy.
I don't quite get that one because a churro is like a long stick. You know what I mean?
Think about it. It took me a few minutes, but a donut is a 0. So he's taken a lot of people's unbeaten records. And he says, I hope you like churros because he'll have a 1 in that loss.
I see.
I had the same reaction at first of you of like, Max, what kind of trash talk we doing here, bro? This ain't good. But I get it now. Dude, I cannot wait for this. And we had an off-camera conversation with our crew. Do you believe that the winner of this fight is the fighter of the year?
Yes. Yes. I can't believe this is even a debate. It's not a question about whether like
what it deserves to be in a debate when we're talking about Poatan. So don't take the too high and mighty.
People think this is an indictment of Poatan. It's not. It's not an indictment of him. It's not a question about like okay, so let me back up a step. If the winner of the 308 main event is like controversial or they eked it out, I cannot imagine the fight will suck, but stranger things have happened, right? In a situation like that where like no one really was like, because the presumption is that Max is so good and that Ilia is so good that in order to beat them, you're going to have to show an incredible amount of skill, durability, preparation, the whole 9 yards. And if for some reason the fight doesn't show that, then we have a different conversation. Okay. I'm assuming that no matter who wins, it's going to be difficult for them, right? Guys, this is not an argument about whether Poatan is good, really good, or excellent. It's got really nothing to do with it. And in fact, it's not even really an argument that like is what he did in the course of 175 days very, very impressive. Yes, of course it is. It is extremely impressive. However, the quality of opposition at 205 in 2024 in terms of what Poatan has faced versus the difficulty in task about what it would mean to either beat Volkanovski and Max Holloway in the same year or up a weight class 55 BMF title back to 45 and then beating Ilia all in the same year. These are vastly different levels of quality in terms of opponents. Yeah, I know Yuri Prochazka was a champion. He doesn't have defense. Like he literally doesn't even use defense at all. He makes all kinds of suboptimal decisions in the course of a fight. Like, I don't know how you can look past that. Jamal Hill certainly was a champion as well, and I think has some ability. It's a good win. I wouldn't call it a great win. And same thing with Khalil Roundtree, who promised to not even take him down. Like, these are things that, like, these are luxuries that a guy like either Max or Ilia would never be afforded in terms of the quality of the opposition. And one more thing I want to say. I know folks are making it out to be like, well, Volk was coming off of that knockout. BC, I'm not here to say that that didn't play a role at all. That's not what I'm pointing out. But we had seen Volkanovski peel out, head up like that against many other opponents who were not able to take advantage of it. Topuria, a dynamic power puncher. Like the idea that any featherweight on that night could have done what Topuria did to him, to me, is completely not understanding what actually transpired there. And in the case of Max, I understand that he's a little bit longer in the tooth and, he does have some miles on him. But he just scored one of, I won't call it his best wins because he finished Jose Aldo back-to-back. Now, that is about as impressive as it gets. So I can't rank the Justin Gaethje win as high as that. However, Max is a former champion, an all-time great at 145 on top of it. Just got one of the best, not his best win, but one of the best wins of his career up a weight class and is now back to fighting for a title because he's beaten basically every other person at 145. This is a quality that either in the case of Topuria or Max that is so far beyond what Poatan has had to go up against. The difficult thing that Poatan has done is take on, I would call, good fighters under very difficult conditions, short notice, injured, that kind of a thing. That makes it very, very impressive. But I'm sorry, if we're asking what is harder to do, beat an all-time great at two all-time greats at 145 or go up to a 55 and then beat basically the next generation guy at 45, is that more difficult to do than beating good, not great fighters? I don't know how is this even a fucking debate?
Okay, this is going to be a fun debate in 2 months. I'm not saying I outwardly disagree with you, but I think you're being a little too heavy-handed and not bringing nuance in. And the nuance in this case is, I get you could say good, not great fighters. 2 of the 3 were world champions. So
at 205 though.
I get that division is arguably the worst right now in men's UFC. But we're talking 3 wins. We're talking the 3 title defenses in a record amount. And I think in some level, you have to take into account that 2 of those were extreme last minute on the biggest cards possible. Look, it's going to be a fun debate. I will say this, though. If Topuria does what he's promised and finishes Max Holloway and becomes the first person to do it, and his 2024 is knocking out Volkanovski and knocking out Holloway, yeah, that may close the debate under those circumstances, but this is going to be very reminiscent of 2019, a debate I'm not done arguing, by the way, when the rest of the world wanted to reward Jorge Masvidal on a fantastic turnaround in year and 3 victories and becoming an overnight star and all of that. Adesanya got robbed that year. I just wanted to put that back out on the record. Yes, Brandon Wise and Brent Brookhouse of CBS Sports, I'm looking at you guys, okay?
So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, in a circumstance like that, it's like, could you call Masvidal Fighter of the Year? I mean, he was certainly in the running. I mean, at a bare minimum, right? You would agree with that. Like, he deserves consideration. But maybe, like, it would have been better for, like, breakout fighter. You know what I mean? And also, I want to be clear. Even if Topuria ends up KOing Volk and KOing Max, which I don't think he'll KO Max, but let's just say, right? Let's just say he does that. That still doesn't mean he was as important for the UFC as Poatan, or certainly he wouldn't put him in a place where he developed his, like, he became as popular an attraction and like as an adored a figure as Poatan. Poatan has had an incredible year. He has been in certain ways, like, he has saved 2024 in ways that even if Topuria gets those wins, wouldn't put him on the level of what, like, Poatan has done. So I want to be clear, like, Poatan has done something for us as fans in 2024 that even with a KO of Max Holloway, like, listen to what I'm saying. Like, that is almost impossible for me to even imagine. Even with that, it wouldn't put him on the same level of importance in terms of what Poatan has given us. But I'm sorry, you have to evaluate the level of fighter we are talking about here. No one at 205. Izzy's different because that's 185. But no one at 205 that Poatan has faced has even an approximate level of skill relative to Max Holloway or Alexander Volkanovski.
Yeah.
Alexander Volkanovski was pound for pound number 1. Pound for pound number 1.
I know, but if you're going to recognize the nuances of why you're bringing Poatan down, you do have to recognize the nuances of Alex coming off of the head kick KO. And I know you said that earlier, but I'm just saying
I definitely think it affected him. I definitely feel like it takes the win down a notch. I do agree with that. But, like, I'm sorry, I still think that Volkanovski, who Topuria lost to, beats almost every other featherweight that night. Maybe not every single one, but just about. Because here's what's really happening. What's really happening is people just don't like Topuria, which we all would agree with. People just,
and by proxy, you, Luke. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. But what I feel like is happening there is that people really like Poatan. And again, he did beat good fighters. I'm not saying he beat bums or scrubs. He beat good fighters. But what's happening is people are wanting to use why they dislike Topuria as a reason to explain fight results. Oh, you know what? Volkanovski was coming off that head kick. It matters, but they're saying that's why Topuria won. That plays a role. It plays a role, but the reason why he won is because he was able to trap a guy against the fence, and he has blinding one-punch knockout power. And if you can't appreciate that, I feel like you're probably going to be in for a rude awakening as his career continues.
Yep, and maybe if Poatan had fought Ankalaev instead of Roundtree and had a win, that could have changed.
That would change it a little bit. Yes,
but 3 wins in that succession, hard to overcome. Let's put a pin in that debate for late December when we certainly have that. All right, Luke, our third topic will take us to what's going down inside the Apex on Saturday. We back, baby. We back with a bang or a bung hole. It's going to be a fantastic flyweight feature inside the Apex when former title challenger, former title challenger, we'll leave it like that, Brandon Royval, and by the way, friend of the program, Raw Dogging It, is going to welcome Japanese sensation 6-0 inside the octagon, Tatsuro Taira, just 24 years old, and boy, is that man happy all of the damn time. Luke Thomas, as we speak right now, DraftKings offering Tatsuro Taira as a -298 betting favorite and a plus 240 Royval, who, don't forget, only losses in the UFC came against the last two champions, Pantoja and Moreno, and he just beat Moreno in their rematch by split decision over 5 rounds at altitude, I believe, too, in Mexico City. Luke Thomas, are you okay with these betting odds, which seem to illustrate that Tatsuro Taira is coming on right now?
They're a little strong to me. They're a little strong. Long Island Luke, do you consider these a little strong?
Yeah, I'm avoiding the money line. Like, dude, Royval earlier in the week was plus 195. Now he's plus 240. I kind of like him now if you're gonna take a dog, but I'm going with the over 1.5 in this fight.
All right. I mean, this is sort of my view on the whole thing, BC, is that it seems a little okay. So what would be Taira's best way, most likely path to victory? You've got a guy in Royval who's got a ridiculous chin, who's very experienced, who does take risks, but I feel like is much better about managing that as we go forward. And to your point, is coming off of a win over former champion Brandon Moreno. I went back and I watched that fight in preparation for today's show, and you see a lot of openings for sure. But this is a much more measured, calculated, skillful guy than it was even 2 years ago or so. The way that I could imagine Taira getting the win is because the takedown defense of Brandon Royval is not great. And Taira has good wrestling, good passing, mount, back. He can really control position, dominate from there, passing, good ground and pound. Like that's really, really where he excels. And so for that reason, I definitely understand the value in putting him there. Plus, he's coming off of that Alex Perez win. It's just the thing for me is this, BC. Like the wins he had are great. Then he had the Perez win, which was like, okay, he's at, obviously at a very high level. I feel like he would have needed maybe one more before a Royval fight. But the reality at flyweight is it's like, hey, are you good? Title fight. You know what I mean? Like Steve Erceg flatlines Matt Schnell, and they're like, title fight. And he performed pretty good for the most part in that fight. Obviously, he couldn't follow it up against Kai Kara-France. But you see what I mean?
Tell that to Mokaev, please. Tell that to Mokaev. All right.
Mokaev didn't have offense. Mokaev had control and good defense, but he didn't really have offense. Taira's got offense. Like he absolutely will lay it on you. It's just that like as good as he is, and he's good. I do think he deserves to be the favorite, but at minus 300.
I know. So, like, he is a finisher. He's got, meaning Taira, 4 stoppages in 6 UFC wins. Although the Alex Perez stoppage did come due to an injury, but Taira was putting it on him. And I certainly get what you illustrated with the gap in perceived ground ability. Yeah, Royval does get taken down. He doesn't, though, he's never really forced to linger there for the most part. I mean, when Moreno would take him down, Royval would find a way to quickly work back to his feet. And certainly Royval, from a submission standpoint, it can handle himself fine on the ground. I do identify that Taira is a bigger finisher threat, whether on the feet or on the ground, has explosive striking. Look, he has a way to blend all parts of his game with just seamless flow. I mean, Taira looks absolutely legit in that aspect, but he hasn't never been past 3 rounds in his career. And you have Royval, kind of known for his cardio. He's coming off back-to-back 5-round fights and had one back in his early days when he lost to Casey Kenny in LFA. So that advantage, big fight advantage, certainly will be in his favor. But really, it seems like the odds makers are identifying as this guy's coming on. And if you beat Brandon Royval right here, you will be fit for a title opportunity. So I also agree that the odds don't fully tell the story. But Luke, would you be surprised in the end? Tell me the truth. If Taira not only won, but finished him, would you be shocked?
By ground and pound, yes. By submission, no. I could see him getting a submission. I just feel like polishing him off with strikes. It could be done. It could be done. It's just that I would be much more surprised by that. But like, Royval will take risks. He does engage in scrambles on the ground and like that kind of thing. If you're the one initiating the scramble and obviously there's a skill disparity, you're going to end up coming up on top and doing much better. Against Taira, I don't know how that's going to go. But, Taira at 5 rounds against an opponent like this, a very, very battle-tested opponent, that's a lot, man. That's a lot to deal with. So I understand the enthusiasm behind Taira. I am high on him. He's very good. He probably should win. But I can't lose. I just don't want to disrespect a guy coming off of a win over Brandon Moreno and like a deserved one at that.
Luke, do you think if Royval does get the win that he's in a bit of a dead-end trap, considering he's 0-2 against Pantoja, got submitted in 2021, and then lost a competitive 5-round decision in their title rematch in December? Would he be SOL even with a big win here?
Yeah, that's why I think they kind of expect him to lose. You know what I mean? Like, he's just going to Rich Franklin his way back to Anderson Silva again. Like, what does that do for you? You know? So I think that they're. I mean, but also I'll say this about Pantoja: he's very underappreciated. But I'm sorry, dude, you can't take that much damage in the way that he does without that showing up eventually. Like, it's going to get him. So like Pantoja, I'm not saying he's going to lose his next fight. That's really not the point I'm making. But like he's not going to keep it that much longer. And so yeah.
Long Island Luke revealing to us that both fighters made the weight 125.5 pounds. Obviously a non-title bout. They can both go as high as 126 here in your Fight Night main event. Royval was in last week to help a teammate in Salt Lake City, Luke, and was part of the group of fighters who rushed to the aid of a shooting victim that died in front of them, which is wild. And Royval was asked about it this week and really just said, like, unfortunately, I'm a shit magnet to these type of things. I've been in and around a lot of crazy situations, and those fighters are built different, Luke. I mean, when shit does go down, they do run after it. I mean, you know, for better or worse. They're brave individuals, but that's not what I want to talk about with Raw Dog Royval. He showed up on the Shaq MMA channel this week. You know, Shaquille Majori of CBS Sports.
He still texts me a lot.
A very MK friendly gentleman, Luke. Please retweet him, please. I mean, good Lord, right? Help the kid out.
He does ask.
He caught up with Royval and asked him an MK centric question that I'm sure you'll enjoy.
Who do you think would be more fun to get stoned with, Luke Thomas or Brian Campbell?
Oh, fuck, man. Brian Campbell for sure. Brian Campbell seems so fun. Brian Campbell seems so fun. Luke Thomas, I feel like we could get like stoned and just talk like just serious shit, you know. Brian Campbell just be fun and shit though.
Yeah. Never before have I seen someone who needs weed as much as Luke Thomas and who looks like they smoke weed as much as Brian Campbell. So it's like
they complement each other really well. I love that show.
Yeah.
Wait, first of all, did Shaq just send both of us to hell right there?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He just You keep asking me to retweet you, fuckface.
Yeah. I will say that contrary to Royval's opinion on you, you are very fun to be around in those elements, Luke. Okay.
The problem is I have too much anxiety all the fucking time, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard for me.
Yeah, but off camera, I get labeled as, you know, the jokester on this show, although most people hate my comedy, Luke, including my family. But I will say that, you know, off camera, you hold it down, Luke. You're a very fun hang in that regard. But
I try. I mean, 3 margaritas deep, you don't know what you're gonna get. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. Luke, what do you're gonna have to make a pick here, right? So the odds are where they are. The reminder, once again, plus 240 on DraftKings is Royval, minus 298 Tyra. Which way are you leaning, and what's the how does it happen?
So it sounds like I'm hedging, and I am actually. If I was to bet money, I would take the underdog because of the value, right? I just don't feel like that seems like a lot. I mean, I just have a hard time seeing him going in there and just muscling Brendan Royval around for 25 minutes. That seems like a lot. But I do think Tyra's very, very talented. I do. He's very good. He also makes errors, and he does get hit at times, unfortunately, in ways that, like, you can see how off balance he is. I feel like Royval has really cleaned a lot of that stuff up.
And his kicking, give Royval credit, his kicking game is solid, man.
Yes, and in all different kinds of distances, all different kinds of setups. Like, I think on the feet, he'll be a big problem. The thing is the wrestling. Yeah. And it got him, by the way, the wrestling got him in trouble against Pantoja too. You know what I mean? Because he is a black belt in jiu-jitsu himself. It's just that the wrestling, I think he's like sub 50% with takedown defense. That's tough to get around against a guy this good.
I don't disagree with you. I'm going to go Tyra by decision.
That's probably about right. I think Royval's very tough, very skilled, again, very battle-tested. He's not going to go quietly, but I think that
he's going to make Tyra earn it. We're going to find out a lot about Tatsuro in this fight. Does he... Luke, coming from Japan, we haven't had a big Japanese star in UFC in a long time, right? Am I forgetting someone badly? I mean, do you have, if he wins this, and maybe this would get him into a title fight, he just stopped the former title challenger in Perez. Would you say that he does have like breakout potential on the other side of the world here?
It's hard to know. I don't know how the Japanese receive him. I don't really know what his star power is there. Obviously, we're very familiar with what Naoya Inoue does, but he's a very, very unique case. It's so funny, dude. Like when I got into the sport, the Japanese dominated. They didn't necessarily have anyone at like heavyweight who was all that great. Maybe closer down to middleweight and down, like Yushin Okami or whatever, But they had so many talented fighters in so many organizations in so many different weight classes, male and female. And that has declined so badly. And by the way, I don't think it's just Taira. I think, Rei Saruya, there's a bunch of other guys as well who kind of represent like a new class of Japanese fighter. I don't know which one of them is going to be a breakout star, but I feel like one of them is going to hit. And it's overdue. I don't think American fans really understand what it means to have MMA where the Japanese have prominent, decorated, celebrated figures, which would allow the UFC or whichever promotion to go back to Japan and really experience the show in a very different and fun way. I hope that one of them does. Whether it'll be Taira or somebody else, I don't know.
Could you imagine UFC at the Tokyo Dome in 2025 or 6 or 7? I mean, that'd be wild.
Would they do a show in a venue that big?
They don't like doing it that way, no. But what if you were doing Tatsuro Taira defending his UFC flyweight title against Kai Asakura? Are they in the same weight class? Yeah, they are, right?
I think Asakura's bantamweight.
Oh, you're right. Did I just ruin that? Long Island Luke, you know better. You know MMA.
So I'm pretty sure Brandon Royval said this week he was offered the fight against Kai Asakura.
I thought he was a flyweight. Maybe I'm not an idiot.
Am I out of my mind?
I hope so.
I could well be.
Maybe you were out of your head.
No,
Luke.
he's bantamweight.
Yeah. MMA Fighting posted a day ago an interview with Royval saying he turned down the Asakura fight. So
all right. Well, it is one division north, so it's not insane. But there you go. That's interesting.
Yeah, he fights at bantam. I mean, what am I missing here?
Luke, can I have you comment about the nubs that we're going to see from the co-main event all the way down? Maybe we won't see it. Maybe we'll be watching Bivol Beterbiev, but give me something to care about on this undercard. I'll be watching Corey McKenna. Shout out to her. She's a good artist, Luke, outside of the cage. But I don't know if I'm going to watch any of the other ones. Should I?
So I'll just go down the list and say like what you can watch for. Jung Yong Park is aggressive and throws power punches against Brad Tavares. That could be fun.
Not really. Yeah, maybe. No.
Grant Dawson is trying to rebuild after that last loss he had, which I think went kind of poorly for him, but I do think he's very talented. D-Rod against Alex Moreno. It's fine.
Okay, that fight's going to bang. D-Rod fighting for his life right now. Career,
yes, he is. That's a fun fight. Pat Sabatini, again, kind of also trying to rebuild a little bit after a tough loss against Jonathan Pierce. I always like
Nico Price. Dude, I didn't even realize that as I rock Nice Price right here. Nico Price in the house.
The interesting one to me is, and when I say interesting, I'm again, relatively speaking, Junior Tapa taking on Sean Sharaf. Now, this was supposed to be Chris Barnett, the Huggy Bear donk, but he couldn't make it because I think he was affected by the hurricanes, so he's having some issues. Obviously, wish the best for him. This guy he's fighting, Sharaf, is coming on short notice, has nothing but first round KOs, which means he is completely untested, but obviously has a dynamite fucking punch. So that could be fun. And then you look at fights like Clayton Carpenter and Lucas Hocha. These are guys coming off of Contender Series wins. So if you're a Contender Series fan, you'll catch some people here because of that. But it's a lot of overflow. Let's be honest.
Abdul Razak Al Hassan is back. Look at a weird.
I know, but like he's kind of cleaned up his style, and it's obviously made him better, but it's made him less exciting. Yeah, so it's like, what do you pick your poison?
Shout out to Parker Porter for taking that Tora Tafa that time and finding 2 KOs at the bottom of that.
That's a tough 1-2 act. Let me tell you.
Luke Nocita here for the final time. Let's get your betting advice. You do care about deep on these UFC Fight Night cards. What's the most value here from a betting standpoint?
I like Alex Morono as a dog against D-Rod, man. D-Rod's lost 3 in a row, hasn't won in 2 years. He's fighting better people, given that. He fought Neil Magny, Ian Gary, and who did he just fight? Kelvin Gastelum.
But doesn't Morono rotate wins and losses for like 4 years in a row?
Yeah, Morono's never lost back-to-back, and he's coming off a loss. So I don't know. I like the value on it. He's gone up too since I got him. He's plus 180 yesterday, so he might be.
Also, D-Rod 37. He'll be 38 in December. That is
exactly.
That's up there.
I think the window's closed on D-Rod. I love him, but I think it's closed. To look bad.
He does have some good tattoos.
I will also say Dan Argueta versus Cody Haddon. I hate to go against Cody Haddon because he's an Australian. He's coming off Contender Series, but Dan Argueta is a fat dog against him, and I kind of like Dan Argueta in that fight. He's got a gas tank, you know.
Do you always blindly support Australian MMA fighters?
Oh, pretty much. Especially Australian boxers, almost exclusively blindly. Never watched it. Like,
are you a Tim Tszyu guy?
Hell yeah, I'm a Tim Tszyu guy. Jai Opetaia is fighting this weekend. Like, I'm just betting on him. I don't care who he's fighting.
I've got a Jai Opetaia story I can tell you off air that is fucking insane.
My favorite
told me it.
My favorite Australian MMA fighter was Nadia Kassem.
Shout out, dude, she was terrible. Yeah, shout out to her for that one time she faked a glove touch and then got knocked out like 5 seconds later. Yeah, was
that against Vlismas? I don't know. There we go. That's all we got.
Here's the most important question: who gives a shit? That's what I would say.
Nocita out. All right, that's that. The fight night goes down Saturday. I don't think Luke is doing a reaction to that, but we'll talk about it.
No, I mean, what would be the fucking point?
No, what would be? All right, Luke, let's go back to a new segment here, but an old one. It's back, right? MK Fridays. We're going to have fun. And please, a reminder, morningkombat@gmail.com. Hey, send in your ideas. What do you want to see out of this show, right? You're going to see some old. You're certainly going to see some new. How about this oldie but goodie? We call it Over Under.
We don't have all the imaging yet.
Not yet. I've got 8 scenarios of sort here where I will read to you a number and you will say whether the scenario is more likely to go over or under that number. Here we go. Number 1. Luke, after staying retired for the past 21 months, and of course, as the mentor and trainer of Alex Pereira, former UFC champion Glover Teixeira, who turns 45 in 2 weeks, told MMA Fighting this week that he's not done competing in MMA. The over-under number here is 3. The amount of top 10 UFC light heavyweights that you would favor Glover Teixeira to beat.
Okay, so I'm going to look up the rankings here. So I got to, he would have to pick. Let me just go back to the rules of the game. It's not if he beats 3; he has to beat 4, right?
It's how many you would favor Glover to beat in the top 10. So
okay, but if the answer is 3, that's not taking the over, correct?
No, that's a push, Luke.
All right, very good. All right, top 10. So I can't include 11. So you have Carlos Ulberg. Would I pick? Oof, I don't know. Johnny Walker, yes. I'd pick Glover over Johnny Walker. Would I pick Glover over Khalil Roundtree? Not on the feet, obviously.
I think he submits him, right?
He could. Nikita Krylov, I think his takedown defense has gotten better.
That's 2. Oh,
no. I've only picked 1. I'm non-committal on Ulberg. I don't know. Walker for sure. I think he beats him. Uzdemir. I don't think this Uzdemir. No. Rakic. No. Blachowicz. No. Blachowicz maybe, but no. Jamal Hill. No. So I'm going to take the under. No, I don't think he can.
Wow. So what? To close on this topic, if he did come back and if it was a big UFC fight, from those last 2 title fights we saw, both absolute brawls. Obviously, the Jamal Hill one, he was largely dominated, though. Do you think he would still have what it takes to be in big fun fights at 45?
I doubt less that it's a skill issue. I think his skill is pretty considerable. And remember, consider how good he is. And when he was in his prime, he couldn't beat the top guys 10 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, this is what when I try to explain to people, like, how bad light heavyweight has gotten, a much better, fresher version of Glover got waxed by guys like John Jones and Anthony Rumble Johnson and Gus. And this is what I mean. I do think he's more skillful than a lot of these guys, but at 45, at 45 more generally, plus to the point you're talking about, where dude, some of those, that fight against Yuri, how could anyone be the same after something like that?
That's going to take years off the back end. Seriously.
That's what I mean. So for that reason, I believe in his skill. Yes, I do. But the body gives out, man. It's hard for me to look the other way.
I'd almost let him have a BMF fight because that's all they're going to be at this point, right? Because he's got so much dog in him. The skills are a little diminished. He'll have success on the ground at times, but eventually it's going to be a war. I mean, he's a slugger, but we'll see what happens. I love Glover, and I hope if he does fight, he fights with the full gray beard because he looks like your old neighbor who's a plumber, and would kick anyone's ass if they crossed onto his yard, you know?
Yeah, but also if you had to borrow his leaf blower, he'd let you and he'd be cool about it, you know?
Yeah, well, unless you didn't bring it back.
No, but I'm saying, like, if you were also a good neighbor, he'd be cool
Yes,
about it.
there you go. All right, number 2 on over-under. Luke, we are 8 days out from the October 19th PFL Super Fights Battle of the Giants pay-per-view. That's a long title in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, featuring 38-year-old Francis Ngannou finally returning to MMA after a 32-month layoff. He'll take on PFL heavyweight champion, I believe, Renan Ferreira, all 6'8" of him. So our over-under number here is 1.5. The total amount of MMA fights that Francis Ngannou will have inside the PFL Smart Cage. I asked you this on this segment 2+ years ago. The problem is Francis never came back to MMA, right? 32-month layoff here. So Luke Thomas, 1.5, counting the Ferreira fight, the total amount of MMA fights that Ngannou will have in the PFL.
This is a tough one. So I think I'm going to take the over. And the reason why is because I do believe that, for example, if Francis wanted to go back to boxing and set up a fight against Deontay Wilder, would Turkey pay for that? I do think he would. I do. How much? I don't know. You know, I don't think it'd be the same kind of check he got against Anthony Joshua at this point, but it'd be good. It'd still be a healthy, nice size check. People would still want to see 2 dynamic punchers, even if, you know, Wilder is, I mean, fucking tsunami washed. Well, is he? I mean, come on, let's be honest about that. We love Deontay Wilder. He's been great for American boxing. However flawed he's been, he's fucking washed. I mean, just whiz-washed. Okay. I'm going to take the over because Francis has said this week that he intends to be in the game until he's like 40, 41 or so. And I think, what is he, 37, 38 now? Around
38.
38. So I think for that reason, he'll have at least another crack. Like, is he really going to fight for the PFL just once? I'm skeptical, given what he has said and given how he still has options in boxing, but they're not necessarily all that great. If he loses to Ferreira, especially if he dominates them early or something, they could just do another one of those. Give me the over.
All right, there you go. Maybe I should have gone up to about 2 or 2.5 on that, but it's like, yeah, I could see a scenario that win or lose against Ferreira, the boxing opportunities aren't what they were, and he takes a couple pay-per-view fights because that's why they gave him all that money and gave him all that control. This is what it's all about. Finally, it's happening. But you do never know, Luke. You never know. You never know if he knocks out Ferreira and then finds new life in boxing, and he's like, sorry, Smart Cage. You never know if the Smart Cage is going to be here.
Let me ask you this, because the scary possibility, I want to be very clear about this. Francis has been a much better fighter and has beaten much better guys than Renan Ferreira. About that, there is simply not even an ounce of debate. But Renan Ferreira is enormous and has a gigantic punch. And if you just watch him in PFL, he's got the dim mock. He touches people and they turn to dust. Okay. It is very possible he could knock out Francis Ngannou. Like, that is a real thing that could totally happen. If you were Francis's manager, and let's say he does get viciously knocked out in the first round, what do you do with him?
I mean, he got KTFO'd against Ngannou. Like, I talked to people who know him and said, like, that was
against Joshua.
Sorry, against Joshua. That was a legitimately tough mental and physical recovery from that. Like, dude, I talked to Glenn Feldman, the judge from my town here, Luke, in Connecticut, who was there judging that night. I was like, have you seen anyone take a beating that vicious in a short period of time with a couple knockdowns? He was like, in my history, I've never seen that type of just tee him up and here comes the boom, Luke, ready or not. Here comes the boys from the South.
I hate to bring it up, but it's just a reality when you're talking about someone's focus, ability to do the work. I mean, he had a terrible tragedy in his life, right?
Yeah.
A profound one, a life-altering one. I don't want to bring that up as like some kind of thing where we want to discuss it too much, but we can't pretend it doesn't.
It could go either way. Yeah.
Right. Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, dude, Renan Ferreira could actually do it. However, the flip side, BC, what if Francis goes in there and just lowers the fucking boom on this guy? I honestly feel like he could change some of his fortunes around getting a better boxing fight again if he does that.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Let's go to number 3 on over under. Luke, this Saturday, shout him out. Oscar Willis of the Mac Life will be making his bare knuckle boxing debut at BKFC Marbella in Spain. This is also the first card in DAZN's in BKFC's new deal with DAZN. So much bigger platform. Oscar will be taking on fellow journalist Ben the Bane Davis. Both, by the way, gave hilarious speeches at the press conference yesterday. I'm happy for both. They're maniacs, though. Just let that be known. Luke, the over-under in this case is 3.5. The amount of illegal substances, whether recreational drugs or PEDs, that Oscar Willis will have in his bloodstream when he steps through the ropes of that circle to take on the Bane.
The amount of illegal substances in Oscar Willis's bloodstream in Saturday's BKFC. I'm going to take the under, not because I think he's clean, but because I don't think he's smart enough to juggle 4 or more drugs at once.
Okay, so you're going to take the under, so you're probably thinking like 3, like 2 recreational drugs and 1
yeah.
Okay.
He's got painkillers, steroids, obviously. And then
White lightning.
And then, well, you know what? I'll take the over. I'll take the over. Here we go. Ready? Steroids, obviously. Methamphetamine.
Wow.
Obviously. Painkillers. And he's probably going to be drinking. Let's just be honest about that. We're talking about Oscar Willis here. When was the last time he was sober for anything? You know what I mean?
Wow.
So.
Wow, this is harsh. By the way, I did ask him that on my channel. He wouldn't answer it, Luke, but hilarious just the same. I hope they both have a great time. I hope they don't get cut up really badly. But do you want to make a pick or no? You don't do that.
I mean, they both already have horrendous teeth, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a,
Wow. Bane's a pretty handsome guy, isn't he?
I'm just, dude, did any of you grow up with brothers who insulted you or something? Like, I only grew up with that. You know what I mean? Like, I do it, and people are like, you're so mean. I'm like, this is what dudes from my era do when they talk to each other. I like both of them very much. I obviously hope nothing happens to them, but I'm going to insult them along the way.
Take that. Let's go to number 4. In the 1980s, Luke, you know all about the 4 kings, Leonard, Duran, Hagler, Hearns. The key here is those 4 Hall of Famers fought each other 9 times in 10 years. What do we have today? Hey, for lack of a better term, we have the 5 princes: Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and Shakur Stevenson, who thus far have fought each other a total of 2 times. Tank versus Ryan Garcia in 2023, Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney earlier this year. The over-under here is 1.5. The amount of times that the boxing 5 princes will have fights against one another in 2025.
So you could do Ryan Tank 2, you could do Ryan Haney 2, you could do Shakur versus Tank. I don't think Shakur and Haney would fight each other. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in that. Plus, they're too far apart. I'll take the under. We had high hopes. Wait, did you include Teofimo Lopez in that one?
Yeah, there are 5 princes here. There's 5 of them. And he wants Crawford. He also is calling out Tank, but you know he can't cut to 135. Tank's not going to fight him at 40 or 47, right?
No. Yeah, I'll take the under. I mean, you might get one. You definitely might get one.
You're going to get Haney Garcia too, or at least you should, right?
You should get. Well,
the
here's
only
the
thing
thing.
that'll hold that up.
So did you see Garcia was like, I'm not going to enroll in VADA? Did you see this?
I did not. I saw that he said that he's not going to rehab because he has a therapist and things are
I can't believe he's not going to rehab. Wow, that was such an ironclad promise. How did we ever get here?
By the way, right after he promised that, he went on like a world tour partying. So he's like, yeah, I'll do it in a few months. Yeah, that didn't happen. I do think we see that fight next year. I think both will act like they don't, or Haney will continue to act like he doesn't want it. We'll see what happens with that lawsuit. But both are going to look in the mirror and know how much money they can make and how important it is for both of them. Ryan doing it clean, right, with no shenanigans and getting out of his suspension. And then Haney, the number one thing Haney can do to revive all the talk, which is negative right now against him, is go back in there and handle your business. So, I mean, dude, that could be couldn't that be a legitimate like $1.5 million pay-per-view with even counting illegal streams? Like it might be that big.
I think it's somewhat going to be mitigated by how many N-words Ryan Garcia drops between now and then. But you know, if he can dial back, you know, the grand wizardry that is coursing through his veins, then maybe he can get.
Did you hear he was going to change his name to David Duke, but they were like, that's not a good look. Not a good look. All right, we're joking. Number 5 here, Luke. At age 31, former Bellator champion Yaroslav Amosov, who sports a 27-1 record despite being upset in his last fight by Jason Jackson, revealed he has fought out his Bellator contract and intends to seek a free agent deal with the UFC. Your over-under in this case is plus 210. The betting odds that you would assign Amosov in a UFC welterweight title fight right now against Bilal Muhammad.
This is a good question.
You know, I put in the time, Luke. I care, okay?
I definitely would make Muhammad the favorite. About that, there's no question. Yes. But Yaroslav Amosov, as BC likes to say, is very well-rounded.
How bad is that Jason Jackson loss right now?
I mean, the thing is, Jason Jackson beat him on the feet, not on the ground. And, you know, Muhammad can strike better than we thought, but it's still, I feel like the majority of his game runs through that, you know.
But you would say he's UFC ready, right?
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, can you say he's the best welterweight in the world? Probably not, but he can probably beat top 5 guys. I do think that's probably true. Certainly top 10 at a bare minimum. Man, that's a great. I'll probably. You know what? Logan Storley gave him a tough time, but I think Bilal's better than that. So I'll say I'll take a slight over. I would maybe say a little bit more than plus 210, closer to like plus 240, 250, something like that.
And it would depend who he had beat to get to that point, right? But I was positing a scenario where he came in day one, which wouldn't happen. But that's the
I think plus 210 is actually in the ballpark. I might go a little bit higher.
Interesting. All right, you'll take the over. Let's go to number 6. Jake Paul posted a TikTok video on Tuesday offering $5 million to Mike Tyson should the soon-to-be 59-year-old or 58-year-old last at least 4 of their scheduled 8 rounds in their November 15th Netflix heavyweight super fight. The over-under here is 2.5. The total number of combined knockdowns that we will see when Tyson and Jake Paul show up on Netflix.
Man, that is a great question. I have not thought about. Wow. Total number of combined knockdowns. Well, here's the thing. The one issue is that they're not going to let Mike get pummeled through 4 knockdowns.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And actually, you have to ask yourself this, BC. Are they going to let Mike Tyson beat the count even if he does? You know what I mean? Like, even if he beats the count at 58, are they going to let him get knocked down and then let him keep fighting?
I think the comparison here is when 58-year-old Holyfield fought Vitor Belfort on Triller, and they gave him a short leash, and he got knocked down a few times because his balance was so bad, meaning Holyfield, once he got hit for the first time, he lost all balance. Dude, they pulled that quick. They didn't like wait till he got knocked out cold. Do you think, I mean, this fight is a much, much, much bigger platform than that, but I tend to lean on your side that you're not going to see Tyson get a chance to get knocked down 3 times unless it's super competitive and they happen like, you know, one early, one, you know what I'm saying? Like if they happen in any close succession, they're going to protect him.
Oh man, this is such a great question. Jesus. I have not thought about, I've kind of thought about like, you know, it's probably going to be sad and Jake Paul's probably going to win. Cause every time I thought Jake Paul was going to get beaten by an MMA guy early on anyway, I don't think that obviously any longer. Like I thought Silva had a chance, obviously. Not that Diaz did, but I thought we both thought that Silva had a chance, and then he just got walloped. And he's going to be 10 years more than that. Fucking hell. I'll take the under only because they're not going to let Mike if he gets knocked down twice, they're going to call it. Now, of course, he could knock down Jake, get knocked down himself, and then Jake could get, you know, 1 more knockdown, which would be 3, obviously. But I think that listen, Jake Paul is the king of. You got to appreciate his hustle. You have to appreciate the business he's built for himself, and I genuinely do. We've seen it up close. It's impressive. but he's a sandbagger, and this is what we think is probably sandbagging. And so for that reason, I'm going to say 2.
All right. All right. Got 2 more of these left. Here we go. Number 7, Saturday's UFC headliner, the aforementioned Brandon Royval, made headlines this week when he, as we talked about, revealed that he turned down an offer to fight Akai Asakura at UFC 305 in Perth because, quote, Royval said, "I am not a cheap prostitute anymore," end quote. So, Luke, your over-under here is 70. The percentage of active UFC fighters who you believe would literally accept any fight offered by the UFC when they call. I'm not saying every single one of those are cheap ass prostitutes, but over under on 70% of the roster would say, "Oh, hey, Sean and Mitch, how are you? I'm in."
No, I would take the under. And the reason why is because I have had many conversations with, well, I've talked to the UFC matchmakers before. I've talked to all the matchmakers. I've talked to WECs, Bellators, matchmakers. Guys turn down fights all the time. All the time. Now, you're right. Like, well, don't they eventually say yes? Yes. If you just keep picking up the phone, you turn over enough rocks, you will 100% find worms. About that, there's no question about it. But the amount of fights that people turn down, especially on short notice, you fucked up the question. Because what you should have said was for 2x what they made at their last fight. If you said that, then I would say yes, the answer is 70. But like just based on what's in their contract, they're going to turn it down like all the time. Yeah, I'll take the under.
So what do you think the percentage is? And it doesn't mean they're all stupid businessmen. People pride themselves on saying, I disagree with it, but they pride themselves on saying, I don't pick my fights. I fight whoever the UFC says to.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Oh, what the actual percentage would be? I mean,
yes,
probably sub 40%, somewhere around there.
All right. Yeah, I do agree with you. Mick Maynard and Sean do have a very tough job these days. Finally, Luke, we go to number 8 here. Conor McGregor was interviewed in Las Vegas by the Schmo on Tuesday, where he said that not only does he still plan on fighting Michael Chandler in 2025, he said he's talking with the UFC about multiple names regarding opponents to fight before that in his comeback because Chandler has a fight first against Charles Oliveira. The problem, of course, is that every time we see McGregor in public and on camera, he looks like he just auditioned for the lead role of Motley Crue lead singer, if you know what I mean. So, Luke, your over-under here is 340. The amount of days Conor McGregor has been intoxicated or worse since 1 year ago today.
Dude, I'm taking the over on that hard fucking core. Are you shitting me? You're going to give me a 25-day window of, get the fuck out of here. This guy
I don't mean has one stout. I mean, he's getting after it. You know what I'm saying?
I'll take the over. I'll take the over. I mean, this is the easiest call on earth. I'll take the over 1,000,000
So
miles.
of 356, you're like, of the amount of days, 356,
365. 365.
I'm sorry, 365. It's the CT, Luke. You're going what, 365? I mean, what are we doing here?
I'll go 364 and a half. I mean, there's probably been like a morning or two where he was sober till like noon. And then after that, like all bets are off. Like, dude, I mean, here, I'm not even mad about it. Like the guy's in a stage of his life where like, I mean, I don't know if I would want to do it if I had his kind of money. I don't know if I would want to party like this, but I'm just pointing out like, you beat the game, dude. You beat it. Like, what's the best you can do in the fight world? You can beat the game. He fucking did that. He did it. He 100% did it. You should, again, I'm not saying you should be like this drunkenly and all the time, but like you on a basic level, you should be enjoying your life. That's what you should be doing. So he enjoys it by, this shit, which is whatever. It's his call. But like, I'm not even bitter about that. I just don't we just got to, you have to call it what it is. This is the stage of the life he's in.
Do you remember that first interview on that BKFC pay-per-view when Feldman brought in Conor and announced him as like a new partner, and people like zoomed in on Conor's face whenever Feldman was talking? He was like, yeah. He was. It was the freaking weekend, Luke, for sure. Wow, that is wild. That's your over/under for the week. Luke, did we want to close with some?
Yes. Hey, we don't have imaging for this yet. All the stuff's still being built, but I want to try something. It's a Friday. We have just a little bit of time left in the show, and how about we try something where I'm going to call it, to start, maybe between rounds. Here's how this works. Very simple. Very simple. Tell me one thing going on in your life that has nothing to do with fight sports. Can be anything as long as it has absolutely nothing to do with fight sports. Between rounds, BC, you go first.
I teased, this topic when I was asked about Caitlin Clark on my live chat this week, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I cannot believe I'm saying this. Luke, I've come completely around, not to a diehard level, not to a creepy, old guy level. I've come around on super elite women's basketball, and I think last night's game 1 of the WNBA finals, that insane game at MSG between the Liberty and the Lynx, really proved exactly what I'm trying to say. Whether we're talking about, the Caitlin Clark experience at elite college level the last couple of years, or the impact that rookie class in general has had on the WNBA this year, mixed with all of those, names that we kind of know. Dude, I used to watch WNBA in the beginning a lot because I was such a diehard NBA fan. And for a lot of this run, the quality of play was just subpar. It was just not what so many of us are looking for. Maybe it plays into this idea that I'm just unhappy with today's NBA game. It is just so supercharged and, dunk from a step inside the free throw line or hit a 3 from 35 feet up and down the floor. It's a different game from when I was, infected and injected and living and loving it. Dude, the elite WNBA game today, I cannot believe it. It's pretty damn good. The defense is through the roof. It's physical as hell. The teamwork, the skill, the scoring, the deep shots, the rivalries, the fighting at times, it's kind of everything what the 90s NBA used to be. And I keep telling myself,
shooting from way outside also, the modern NBA?
Not as many, but yes, without question. I mean, Caitlin Clark's pulling up from inside half court. I'm just saying, they have figured it out. And it's not just Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and the other rookies that have, Cameron Brink, that have made a big name here. The game is really good in ways it never was. And obviously, it's picked up in terms of interest, and now you're seeing celebrities that, it's becoming like a business now finally. But I'm going to be that cynic in the corner that's yeah, but who cares? Until I tuned in and was this is competitive, intense, a sport I love to watch, almost as much as I love to get inside the box. And I am real. I mean, watch the highlights from last night's game 1. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's pretty awesome if you love basketball. And I know most people are already up on that, but there's a lot of those curmudgeons. I mean, we used, how many WNBA jokes did you make in the late 90s, Luke? We used to get real drunk and be like, let's show up with signs protesting at the games, go back to the kitchen. Yay, misogyny.
Someone once asked me a serious question. They go, what would you rather do? Get courtside seats to a WNBA final game or find $5 in your pocket? And you're like, you take the $5. You just take the $5. But not anymore, man. Not anymore.
It's different. So, I don't schedule my life around it, but I'm watching the highlights or they'll make half-hour condensed highlights of these games and these great moments. And I'm kind of enthralled here. And, I know you can make a straw weight comparison there, but it's not even about that, Luke.
Dude, one of the big stories was Caitlin Clark had, obviously has injected so much life into the league that some of these teams are chartering their own flights now. I took a couple of flights years ago. I think I took one in Arizona. I forget where I was going. Maybe Arizona to Texas, something like that. And the WNBA team got on board. First of all, I was amazed. Many of them were taller than me, and I'm 6'4". They were tall. And then the other one was they were pretty attractive. I'm not gonna lie. They were
looks like body for days.
They had body for days. Which is not the reason why you want to watch. In fact, quite the opposite. I actually been watching WNBA too because Tukes, she loves baloncesto, if you know what I'm saying. She loves that game. So she'll watch it as well. We didn't watch the finals, whatever, but through the course of the season, we were definitely watching the Mystics. She wants to she's been asking to go to a Mystics game this whole time. Oh, did you freeze?
You're still there.
Did you freeze?
It sounded like you were remixing. It sounded like you were.
You got that McDonald's Wi-Fi, bitch.
Way or some shit. I think
Hey, Long
you
Island
have
Luke.
it. No, I think it's you. I
don't think it's me. I don't think Long Island Luke. Who
It's
had it?
BC. It's BC. He's
Yeah.
still kind of jittery. He's coming back now.
Yeah, you got that
All
piece of
right.
shit country bumpkin, middle of nowhere, Connecticut fucking Wi-Fi. All right, I'll do mine for my between rounds here. One thing going on in my life that has nothing to do with fight sports. BC, I don't get to the movies very often, and I know everyone has already seen this. I'm not really telling you anything you don't probably already know. Did you see the Wolverine Deadpool movie or the Deadpool Wolverine movie?
It's not the kind of thing I'll go after unless my kids are really into it, and they haven't mentioned it. So no, I haven't seen it.
They did not. Even your kids didn't want to see it.
Dude, they live on their phone on YouTube, and if it doesn't come through that way, then they're not going to watch. They sit in their room with a massive TV and never turn it on and just live through YouTube, which I guess I do too, Luke. In hotel rooms, killing time. So
Yeah.
Spider-Man meme. Right?
Well, and you can watch it on your phone now too. I watched it on Fandango at home, so you can buy. That's actually how I went. I did not go to the movie theater. I waited till I came home on streaming. And so, if you've been like me and you have a kid, you never get a chance to go do anything fun anymore. I'm teasing. You can wait till the movie comes home. Let me just say this. I am very much kind of sick of the both the superhero movie and the anti-superhero movie. And I'm sick of the multiverse stuff. And I thought I was sick of like the Deadpool shtick, which is taking nothing seriously, and it's homoerotic kind of humor. So I went in with like being all right, I'm gonna watch it, but like how good could it possibly be? Dude, it's great. It is actually really kind of fun. And some of it fell flat for me, but most of it didn't. And I'll say this, there are at least 4 different cameos, more than that, but there's at least 4 different cameos in the movie, because I had not seen any spoilers or anything like that. I just went into it as is. There are 4 different cameos in this movie that are fucking awesome. One in particular that is epic. And it actually worked. I actually thought it was I was very surprised at how much I ended up liking it. They were able to like what's the Aussie donk who plays Wolverine? What's his name?
No Sato?
No.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. He was able to be both himself and then, like match the Deadpool energy, because he was obviously in a Deadpool universe, so to speak. That worked out really well, and the storytelling kind of worked. The pacing worked. Dude, like, it was fun. I legitimately thought it was a really, really fun movie.
All right.
I recommend it.
I'm done with those type of movies unless it's Thor: Love and Thunder, and I can get you upset.
Dude,
but
Thor: Love and Thunder is like one of the worst movies ever made.
I enjoyed it in the theater, but I hate that genre, dude. That's all the movies are these days, right? Did I just sound like an old man yelling at the clouds? Hey, speaking of the clouds, did you? I don't. It definitely didn't extend to DC. My wife is so huge into weather and weird stuff like that, and Aurora Borealis, that
I did see them yesterday. Yes.
Oh my! I went to the front yard and couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I had a moment yesterday, and you're gonna. This is like when you're just a completely old, dumb fuck, loser, bitch ass motherfucker like I am.
Yeah.
I had to go meet someone yesterday at the Washington Monument. There's a project that I've been a part of that is going to debut next week that everyone's going to see. So this was the last piece that we had to work it out to make that happen. And so this was at the golden hour. So I finished with what I was doing at like 6:30, 6:45. Huh?
You said golden hour?
Do you know what the golden hour is? Do you know what the golden hour is?
I get it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like the last hour of hanging out with R. Kelly.
That's the golden hour shower. The golden hour, for folks who don't know, is the last hour before sundown, and you get a certain like yellowy kind of glow with the sun and the light. Anyway, so I was biking home from the Washington Monument, which for folks who are looking on a map, it's 15th and Constitution, and I had to go essentially eastward. And behind the Capitol was the Aurora Borealis, and the bike lane is actually right in the middle of Pennsylvania. And I got to go for like a mile just looking at the Capitol on my bike with beautiful weather, with the pink hue in the background. It was, as my in-laws would say, espectacular. It was unbelievable. I had such a moment. I was like, this is beautiful. Now, I also was high. But still,
It was all like pinkish red in my area. I saw Jay Paquette's pictures from Nova Scotia. Shout out to Mount Unike crew up there. It was green and other colors mixed in. I mean, that's art, Luke. That's true art. You know,
that is art. That's the universe's art. It was beautiful.
I also wanted to mention, and I know you saw the clips for it on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it yet. Did you watch Top Rank's The Fight Life on ESPN Plus?
I have not.
Dude, you are going to love this. I saw all the commercials and we're like, yeah, we don't really need this. It'll probably be decent, but whatever. Dude, this series is freaking awesome, Luke. Awesome. Like you mentioned Inoue. We know so little about Inoue largely because of the language difference and the fact that he mostly fights in Tokyo. Dude, getting the cameras to follow him around for, 48 hours before the fight, having him sit down with his coach and just chat and stuff like that kind of stuff is super interesting. But how that series covers the business at large, like the chances Top Rank took by bringing cameras into their pitch meetings, and like it's all honest and real and raw, kind of like the UFC Roku in that regard. Dude, this is really, it's like showing boxing war and all. Here it is. And
is this on ESPN Plus?
Yes, it's on ESPN Plus. They do build each episode around one fight and they take you up and through it, but they do a lot of the inside of the boxing business just the same. And I loved, man, I haven't seen some good boxing content that good in a while. Like they nailed the tone of it perfectly.
All right, I'll have to check that out. I know you've been effusive with praise about it, but I gotta see it.
I'm very effusive in general. Wow, Luke, what an episode. What a 2 hours of just bang bros, right? We're back.
And we got paid. Yay!
Well, not yet, but we'll see. No,
you know what I mean.
Yeah. There you go. Could not be more excited to be back in the lives of you folks from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every single week. Long Island Luke, thank you for playing your role in this. I mean, this guy's decently valuable to this show, you'd say, Luke Thomas, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's never sober, but he's always there, and for that reason, I value him.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Check out the main card minute on Saturday.
Yeah,
get out of here. We don't need that. Luke, any weekend plans? Any messages to close? What do you got?
I have to go to a kids' party tomorrow, but then after that, I am going to be doing the Beterbiev-Bivol watch along. Please join me for that. And then, of course, Mondays, MK will react to everything. Plus, we're going to set the table for Big Francis's return. This month, dude, is fucking bananas. 2 UFC pay-per-views. The return of Big Francis, Beterbiev-Bivol. I mean, what else do you want? And Halloween to cap it all off.
Right.
Let's fucking go.
There's only one thing that can make that better. Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern, Randy Cooter on MK to set the stage. What do you think? Come on. What do you think? This time, right?
I'm good. I'm pass. I love Randy. He's great, but yeah, I'm good on that.
Yeah, he likes grass on the field. We've already established that. Okay, for our fantastic team here, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you to you folks for sticking by us through some tough times in the family. But we back. morningkombat@gmail.com is where you can start sending in those fan subs, dead wrongs. Pitch us some ideas. Tell us what you think. Let's build this thing back up from the ground. That's Luke Thomas. I'm your boy BC. Follow us, support us, continue this. Thank you. We're back. We're not going anywhere. Enjoy the fights this weekend, 6 p.m. Eastern time, ESPN Plus. Beterbiev-Bivol. It's going to be wild. Can't wait for it. We are out.